All right. Thank you guys so much for coming. We really appreciate you guys taking the time out of your Friday afternoon, if anyone's watching some basketball, to spend some time with us and learn about the NeuroNode Trilogy. We have everyone muted currently, so if you guys have any questions throughout the duration, just go ahead and send them to us in a chat, and we'll circle back around and do Q&A at the end, and I'll unmute everyone. If anyone's having any issues connecting or with audio, you can call into the office and someone will be able to help you get connected. The number is 513-453-4848. So I'm going to turn it over to Megan Kahneman, who is our sales director with Control Bionics, and she is going to dig into all of the fun features of the Trilogy, and I will be monitoring the chat from just off screen. So if you have any questions, just send them my way.
Hi, everyone. Nice to meet all of you virtually. If you didn't get the chance to come to our booth at ATIA, then this is going to be an up and close view of the NeuroNode. Making sure we don't have any issues. Okay, perfect. So I'm going to come up and just show you this. The NeuroNode is an EMG wearable switch. Okay, everybody see that all right? On the back, you will see 3 electrodes, 2 of which are active and 1 is grounding. So if you look at the front, I don't know how well you can see that. It's a little blurry from here, but there are 2 dots, and those refer to the 2 active electrodes on the back. So when you put the switch on, that's essentially the kind of the active areas that you'll want to be looking at. Okay, perfect. So the nice thing about this new switch is that it has 24-hour battery life and a fun little charger that you can sit it on, so no more having to undo batteries. You just can set this in and plug it in just like you do an iPad or iPod. We also now can attach it, as you can see on my wrist here, with these straps, adjustable straps. If you have a bigger body part, like a leg, or if you want to do something across the head, you can just do extenders to these. They're really easy, and this is like an extender. Let's see if you can see this up close. And the straps come in a variety of colors, but you can kind of take a look at this. And that just extends on, so then you could attach another one to it. Okay? We still do have electrodes if you need placement, like on the head or the neck, and they don't want to have this on there, or what we refer to as a communion wafer. It's just an adhesible pad. But the nice thing about this new NeuroNode is that you have these electrodes that stick to it that make it so that I can put it on multiple body parts at one time. Right? So if I'm trying to get a signal here, or if I want to get a signal from a bicep, I can move it without having to then worry about the adhesive placement. Yeah, the camera's not focused. Let me see if I can bring this closer so you can kind of see this, how these kind of connect on. Is it better when I'm up close?
Yeah, it is.
Okay. Okay, so I'll try to stand close to you, and then you can just get like a full front image of my face. So here is the NeuroNode, and then these just kind of stick onto the back. Right, so you can see that. And that way you can move the placement. So I could start to get something here if I wanted like a finger flexion. If you guys can see this, you can kind of see it moving. So then I would take and put the 2 active electrodes that correspond with the 2 dots right here along that muscle line. Right? And then you just want to make sure that this grounding electrode is touching some skin, right? You don't want it to be hanging off, just so it's kind of canceling out some of that negative feedback. Okay? So just like this. So I have mine for the purposes of today's demo. So the same place I just showed you. Right? So you look, you can see I've had it on for a while today. Right? It doesn't hurt. There's nothing on this. It's like paper. It's very easy. But if you look, you can see my muscle moving along that line as I move my finger. Now, the nice thing about this switch is that it's taking a signal that your brain already gives your muscle, right? So the muscle doesn't necessarily have to be functioning. In cases like SMA or ALS, the muscle itself doesn't actually have to move. So I could still be, without visually seeing it, moving this finger telling my brain to do that. Because I'm able-bodied, when I tell my brain to do that, my finger moves. For somebody that maybe isn't, then you wouldn't necessarily see this, but as long as the signal is there, I'm gonna register this into the millions of microvolts so that you can see that, okay? Perfect, so now that's on that spot. I'm going to show you what that looks like. Okay, so I'm going to go into our controller app and hit the NeuroNode, and now I'm just going to connect this. It connects through the Bluetooth. And all I do is just hit the connect button, and you can start to see that. Now that initial signal is just the resting state right now that I'm at. So anything, it's going to pick up anything that's going right now. My brain is always kind of talking. As I make a movement, you'll see that go up and down. Right, so one signal. And I'm going to turn this around so I can get closer so you guys can actually see my finger as I make this move. Okay, so if you're looking at the graph and at my hand, I'm just making a movement and you see the graph go up. Right? Movement and it goes up. Now, if you look at the graph, there's, besides the blue line of just the electrical signal, there's a green line at the top and a yellow line at the bottom. Okay, the green line is the signal on line. That's essentially the top of the movement where the switch is going to be made. So I have to get above that green line in order to make the switch. I have to come down below that yellow, which is rest, in order to make a switch again. So in cases where somebody might have tremor and they would get stuck making a movement way at the top, right, not coming down, it's not going to switch again until it comes down below that yellow line. I'm like pointing at the screen and there's nobody here. But so that's essentially how you make the switch. You can make the movement and then come back down. Okay. So this is what we call static scaling, where the lines are just the green and the yellow. I can go into this setting, which is that wheel right in the menu bar. Just a little bit of delay. And you can see, if I scroll down, that there's a green and yellow line that correlate to the green and yellow line from the graph. So if somebody needed a lower green line because they didn't have as great of movement, I can just lower this bar and lower the resting rate. So now I don't have to make as big of a movement for it to be activated. The nice thing in the new feature, oh, somebody has a question about referencing the colors. Okay, so the next thing that we also have for cases where, like ALS, where their status might decline over time. So maybe they start off really great in the morning and then they slow down in the afternoon. We can change this setting in here to dynamic scaling. So up here, right underneath key off delay, is a check mark for dynamic scaling. The nice thing about dynamic scaling is that it moves as you move. So if I have a lot of movement in the morning, those lines are going to come up. As I fatigue more throughout the day, those lines are going to come down on their own. The nice thing about this is that it takes the caregiver coming in and having to make any changes. It's essentially calibrating itself throughout the course of the day. That way there is no, well, I was doing really great this morning, and so I was getting all these active buttons, and now I'm moving down further, and I'm not getting as much activation, okay? For us, I feel like that significantly reduces user fatigue over time. That's a really great example of kind of how the device is just picking up versus hitting a traditional switch or even trying to get in the proximity of a proximity switch. For users with CP, you may typically stay with the static scaling because we want them to have to work for that motion. right? You want to have kind of a line they can get to, something that isn't too tiring. Like I don't want them to have to work really hard to be at rest or to make this movement, but I also want them to have enough volitional control that that's where it's going. For the most part, I start everybody at like an arm flexion. I'm trying to look for a wrist or a finger, any of those things. I'm just going to pause it so that you're not continuing to see that move. But yeah, so I'm trying to look at those positions on the hand because as I said before, it's not about the signal or the muscle being moved. It's about the signal that their brain is giving that muscle. So for instance, we saw a girl recently who, to the visible eye, we could not see the movement, right? She had been previously using a proximity switch or attempting to use it. And in this person, we placed the switch on her shoulder. And we were able to get kind of this motion that was not visible to the eye. We could just watch it on the graph and we could see the effort that she was trying to make by the visible up and down of the graph. So sometimes we can just look at the graph for movement to say, hey, maybe they're trying to get to that green line. I could see that the line moves up, but they're not actually hitting above the green line. All of that kind of comes into play when you're just like looking at the graph. I spend a lot of time just looking at that person on the graph, trying to see where they are over time. I want to make sure that the rest isn't too hard. I don't want them to have to be actively resting. I want that to be at a normal rate. If they're normal, it's like in a Parkinson's situation, always a side to side. I want to be kind of able to do that, or if they always have a tremor, I want to be able to look to that as well, so I can set those green and yellow lines to be individualized for the person. And the only thing that we haven't yet talked about is that on an iOS device, for somebody that is a very proficient user, you can do similar to a two-switch scanning, where you do the regular movement, NeuroNode movement for the first switch, and then you can do a long press. If everybody's familiar with those iOS accessibility settings, it's just in the regular accessibility settings of an iOS device. And you can set the long press to be the next action, which would be essentially two switches. So the best thing is once you set these parameters, so once I've decided that, once I've decided that this is a good movement for me, it's not too much effort, it's enough to kind of keep me going, I can hit it enough times, then I'm gonna kind of save these settings. So next to the menu, which is in the middle, the second from the left is with the arrow going down, kind of like the same cog and wheel with the arrow going down, and that's gonna save your settings. Okay, so now my settings are saved in this status, and I can go into my software and begin to use the device in those settings. In our Trilogy device, which is what we just debuted at ATIA, we use Grid 3. Let me take you back so you don't have to, this is, okay. So the nice thing about the Trilogy is, and I don't know if you guys can see this really well from this angle, I don't want to have my back to you. Okay, so this is our newest device, the Trilogy, and it combines the Surface Pro with Grid 3 with an eye gaze, it's the iTech TM5, and the NeuroNode. Okay, so all three of these components in one, and that's essentially where we get our eye control, mind control, touch control. So the thing that we think makes this Trilogy a top device and something to be considered for your candidates is the combination of the eye control and the NeuroNode. So I'm going to demo for you and hopefully you can see it. So essentially, you're going to be looking at the screen, which I will show for you, and your eyes will be the selection. So I'll be looking all around the screen like I typically would at any computer screen, but it will not select via dwell or blink. It will only select when you make your NeuroNode switch movement that accesses the switch. Okay? We really like this idea, and I'm going to turn it around so you can kind of see me looking at it and my movement. But we really like this because we find that the combination of the two significantly reduces user fatigue. I feel like a lot of times when they're kind of to learn the eye control method originally, it's taking a lot of fatigue on their eyes. They get red, they're tired, trying to figure out and pre-plan what they want to say before looking at those selections. Also medication and just fatigue throughout the day all play into kind of the eyes becoming part of that output as well. So we've seen a lot of reduction in user fatigue when using these two methods together. So let me show you what this looks like. And you're still going to go through the same calibration process as the eye gaze because you're still going to want. So I feel like this, if everybody's familiar with grid 3, I like the fact that it gives you kind of like a red mad face when you're not at the right spot, kind of a happier smile. Not necessarily the Blair Witch eyes, which I feel like for some kids is a little bit more fun. So I'm just going to go in and hit my calibration, my typical calibration. In grid 3, we have 3 custom users that are already pre-programmed in the device. So one is for just regular touch control, one is for scanning, and one is for eye gaze in the NeuroNode. Okay, so that looks good enough for me. So now I can go in and I can look all around the screen with my eyes. I can turn my head to the side. Can everybody see me? Okay, good. And then look back, and nothing's being selected until I make my switch. I guess I should hold my hand up when I do that so you can see that I'm not doing anything until I make my switch. And you can really see until I get okay. So 2 M's, but that's not too bad for having to only see half the computer with all these zoom settings. So, but this is good. So you can kind of look around. I feel like for the user, I'm going to scooch this side a little bit. This is an excellent way for us to bring communication back to the person. I feel like so often we spend time looking at the device, especially for children. When I go into classrooms, I a lot of times see kids that talk to the device instead of the student. I've seen that a little bit recently with some people with ALS that have small children. Often their kids will come and kind of put their face like, "What's Daddy doing?" And then he is like trying to get to his device again. So I feel like this really opens up that communication. It's also, like we were saying before, a lot easier on the eyes. This is typically what we've done, and whenever you're looking at your computer, you're looking at it, and then you're making a mouse click. And the nice thing about this is that now this whole solution is fundable through both Medicare and Medicaid, a one-time funding application. So we had submitted to Medicare and at ATIA. We had a few states coming in, and they're slowly starting to trickle in for the Medicaid. And so that's an excellent way for us to kind of get these solutions into the hands of people that need them the most. Nice, I feel like.
All right, so I am just going to come back in here for a second and talk about a couple more things. And then I think Corinne, who was on the chat, she tried the device at ATIA, so I thought she could talk a little bit about her experience using it and sort of give everyone here a little bit of a first-hand experience that's not me or Megan. I just quickly want to say that the system has been funded through Medicare across the U.S. We are very quickly rolling out into state-by-state Medicaid programs. If you guys have any questions about funding, you can reach our funding department at funding@controlbionics.com. And if anyone here has a question about a specific state, I'm happy to help answer those questions. We're a little bit over halfway across the US, and like I said, moving quickly. So we're really excited to be able to offer all those coverage options. We do trials with the system. It depends on your funding situation, but that is absolutely an option for any individuals out there or any client or clinicians that have patients that can benefit from the system. Megan touched on a lot of stuff that we didn't have the time. We wanted to try and keep this nice and quick today, but stay tuned. We will be doing some further webinars. One really cool thing that Megan didn't get the chance to dive into today is the NeuroNode 3's ability to do spatial switching. It's a brand new feature. There's nothing like it out there. It really removes the switch from switch scanning. It's just a really, really cool feature that we're really excited to talk about. So we're going to do another webinar talking specifically about that spatial switching technology. It's built into the same device. It comes with the system, and it's got some really cool potential for some clients out there. We're also going to be doing a webinar coming up on the NeuroNode controller calibration. So if anyone here has a client in mind and you just want to learn a little bit more about how you actually calibrate it to compensate for specific conditions, we're going to really be deep diving into all of the different settings within the NeuroNode 3 controller application. And we'll also do a placement workshop. So if you have any end users that you think may benefit, definitely sign up for that one. We'll sort of be doing like a case-by-case study where we're talking to all of you about conditions and clients, and we're helping you with placement. We'll share some of our own case studies. So we have some really cool things lined up. Hopefully you guys can all tune in for. So I'm going to go ahead and unmute everyone, and just give me 1 second. Megan, you can go ahead and stop sharing. Perfect.
Faces, bills when they walk in.
All right. Everyone is unmuted. If you want to stay muted, go ahead and mute yourself. But Corinne, would you like to talk to us a little bit about your experience trialing the device?
Sure, I can just, excuse me, I have a little laryngitis right now from a lingering cold, but I was at ATIA in January, and I'm an assistive technology consultant and worked OT by trade. So my role on the team is around access to communication and curriculum. And so I've used a variety of switches, eye gaze technologies, head pointing, head tracking, all of the above. And what I was really, really shocked how much easier it was to select using the NeuroNode switch than it was. I've tried the combination of eye gaze and switches before, and then of course the dwell technologies and the blink and things built into eye gaze. It just seemed more automatic. There wasn't as much. I didn't realize how much motor planning there is involved in dwelling to select something through eye gaze until I tried this. So I've been really, really excited about it. And in fact, I went and found our AAC consultant and dragged her to the booth and made her try it. I have several clients I'd like to try it with. But yeah, I was really impressed. And I think I got to see that last piece of newer updated piece of technology, or it's actually, I guess, still in the NeuroNode, but with movement, they demonstrated that as well. I'm excited about the opportunity of a lot of clients who have fluctuating tone throughout the day. And so finding that consistent switch placement that works the beginning of the day when maybe their bodies are a little tighter, or the end of the day when they're more tired, more fatigued. I like that you can keep the same switch in the same placement and adjust the sensitivity of it according to how that client is feeling at a particular day or when they get sick or things like that. So yeah, my big question, I guess, is we have a lending library, so where we host a variety of devices that districts both in our county and some in neighboring counties can trial before they purchase something. And so we are interested in getting one for our loan library and haven't been able to get answers on how we could go about that, how we could go about building a quote that's not funded through insurance.
Yeah, so you can just send us an email and I'll shoot you over a quote. You just tell me what you want or what you're looking for and I can build that quote for you and send it to you. We'll accept POs, however you guys are comfortable paying.
Can you also talk a little bit about some clients, if there is sort of severe motor impairment where we're not dealing with a degenerative condition, so maybe something like CP where the movement's a bit more spastic, and how you might go about placement. Sorry about that, guys.
So yeah, so I feel like two things I'm kind of looking at. I want it to be volitional movement in terms of I want them to know that they are moving this way. If it's something that's not happening volitionally and that's just like because they're trying to make another effort, they're trying to make another event, and so this arm is going because I'm trying to move this arm. Those kind of things. I want to kind of just look at them. For the most part, I work closely with OTs and speech therapists to kind of see if they've decided it's the best placement.
Stay close to the microphone because we can't hear you.
Sorry about that.
Thank you.
Thanks. Sorry. Yeah. So as I was saying, I feel like you're kind of looking at the easiest spot, not always the most dominant spot, because sometimes I like them to be able to have movement with this. Like if they're used to always reaching forward with the right, maybe I'm going to try the left. Because it's not, because again, we're taking an impulse from the muscle. I'm not necessarily looking for movement.
Neither do I. I have the background, but she came forward. Now she's not even there.
Can you guys hear us okay?
Yes.
Yeah, Megan's right here. She's just scooted closer to the microphone. You can see this is the top of her head. So she's still here. She's just trying to get closer so you guys can hear okay. Does anybody else have any other questions? I know we are right at 2:30 and we promised a quick 30 minutes, but we're happy to answer any questions if you guys have some off the bat. Great. Well, thank you guys so much for taking the time out of your Friday. We really appreciate it. And we'll be sending out a follow-up survey just to see what you guys think about upcoming webinars and topics. And we would love to hear from you guys. As always, you can reach out to us at neuronode@controlbionics.com. You can also reach us at 513-453-4848, and we'd be happy to direct any email or call to Megan if you'd like to speak with her directly, or to myself. So thanks again and have a great weekend. Bye.
Hi.